So this one is about the nature of the mind. I've been really excited to do this one for quite a while. It's been brewing within me for ages, actually. But a number of reasons have caused me to hold it back, prematurely. But I've just felt prompted, more and more prompted, because of what lots of other people are saying about the mind and the ego. And, it seems to be that, with things like COVID hitting everyone, lots of stress and anxiety, people are promoting the avoidance of thoughts. And, as a way to find some peace. And I totally get it. But I think the ideal scenario is when we engage in these things to understand what's really happening. And I think, my perspective on the mind is a lot different to many people's. And, I think lots of what I say now may be surprising to you. And may or may not resonate, but doesn't really matter. So here it is, the nature of the mind. So what is really, really important to understand fundamentally about the role of the mind is that its purpose is to contain the spirit. It's to contain the spirit. So if you think of it as a container, yes, it's an etheric container, but it's the best way to, if you wanted to envisage it in your mind, not that it does look like this, but so you can understand the characteristics of it, its nature, is imagine it's a bubble, and inside it is nothing. Spirit, ether. And the job of that bubble is to to protect the innocence of the perspective of that spirit, to protect it at all costs. But this bubble, it can open and close, and it can reveal what's inside. When from its perspective, it believes it's beneficial to do so. If not, then that bubble closes, and this bubble is impenetrable, by the way. It's like a shell. This is the mind. It's like with a cell. If you look at a single cell organism, around the outside is its brain, the membrane. And so if you just imagine the mind is a container, almost like an etheric membrane, and it contains the spirit. And remembering that the spirit is the primordial substance that has the potential to become anything. It exists as pure, latent potential. And it looks like it's empty space. But of course it's not. Because space is the primordial substance. And so you have this container, which is the mind, and the mind is programmed to facilitate this primordial substance, the spirit, to realize higher and higher potentials of what it can become. So that it can, I am this, I am that, I am this. But there are some truths that could corrupt the innocence of its perspective and therefore limit it from continuing to evolve. And I've spoken about this on another podcast where the truth of a reality could prevent the evolution of the spirit, because the perspective's been tainted, and the beliefs that have formed because of it limit its progress, limit its potential. So the mind is totally focused on the fulfillment of the highest potential. And so in any given moment, the mind may allow the spirit to be vulnerable and express from its truth, if that is seen as enabling higher and higher potential. But if the truth of the reality is deemed as a threat to the continued expansion, then the mind is what will express rather than the spirit. And so the really, really critical component to all of this is to understand that the mind is sovereign. It is sovereign. You do not control your mind. You don't control it. In the same way that the spirit is sovereign. The body is sovereign. All of the cells within yes, you can move your body around and all these kinds of things, but each individual cell is sovereign. You can't control your liver. You can't control a cell. You can't tell it to, you can't force it to produce, a protein against its will. You do not have control over it. It is sovereign. And in the same way the mind is sovereign, the same way the spirit is sovereign. But they work together symbiotically. And so in truth, what is a human body? It is, in terms of its biology, it's an ecosystem of symbiotic minds working together as one. Each cell sovereign. But together, they form a higher mind. And so the best way to imagine this in your mind is a murmuration of birds. I use this metaphor all the time. A murmuration of starlings. We've got a whole bunch, all these individual birds in a flock. And they're moving together like a school of fish, symbiotically. They each have their own mind. And that mind is solely focused on the individual bird thriving. But each individual bird is solely focused on following its own nature, receives an impulse, it interprets it, and behavior happens. It is not trying to be part of the murmuration. It's just following its nature, and it's finding itself that by following its nature, that it's just part of this murmuration. And that's because of the mind that is the container of that entire flock. You see? So it's the same with us. There is a higher mind that doesn't control us. And in the same way, I can't tell my liver to become a kidney, but I can still influence it. I can still influence it by what I bring into my body, how I move my body, all these kinds of things. So all my cells within my body If I move my hand to the left or to the right or wave my arms in the air, it's like a murmuration of cells. They're all still following their nature. My liver is still following its nature. My kidneys, my heart, everything's following its nature. But I'm still moving my arms around. And those cells are a part of my arm. But they're not trying to move my body. They're just responding to the signals. They feel a signal, they interpret it, and behavior happens. But they're still only aware of being a cell. You see? And this is the nature of the mind. This is the nature of the mind. And so the key thing to draw out of all of this, understanding that the spirit's sovereign, the mind is sovereign, the body is sovereign. And by allowing each of those three components to be sovereign and behave in a sovereign fashion, you have to relinquish control to each of those aspects in trust. Because lots of people say, oh, you're not the body. The real you is the spirit. You are the soul, or, you're not the personality. And, in many ways, this is true. But the deeper truth is that you are all of those things. You're all of those things working together symbiotically as one. Because at the deepest essence of who and what we are is actually a mind. And we are that observer, pure awareness. We are that observer as well. But it's not really important because, if you just bring into your understanding that you are a hybrid, you're not just one thing. You're a hybrid of three things that work symbiotically as one thing. And if you really, if you focus, you can bring your awareness into all the perspectives of all of those things. But what does this mean? And it means a great deal. The implications of this are utterly immense. What does that mean? That means that stop trying to fight your ego. Stop it. Stop it. Most of you listening to this know that the ego's job is to keep you safe. But the ego is just a tool in the kit of the mind. If the job of the mind is to protect the spirit, to protect its innocence, to ensure it can continue to evolve and expand, and it is primarily programmed and functioned to enable the spirit to realize its highest potential. And now symbiotically, as awareness as the awareness expands, it becomes more aware of what it is. I am this. If I am this, that means I can become that. The desire arises, you see. And so it's symbiotic. So the mind is processing whether or not a particular truth may be conducive to further expansion. And if it interprets, if it says, no, this isn't conducive to further expansion, then the mind is what expresses. And the mind can send fake signals. It can deceive the spirit and therefore awareness, through methods of dissociation, through sending images that are seen by awareness and interpreted in a specific way. So the mind will deliberately deceive the spirit if it is beneficial for the spirit to be deceived. Because the impact of some truths on an immature state of conscious awareness can be, they can manifest as stagnation, obsolescence even, because the belief that's formed due to that truth in an immature state of conscious awareness could limit it from believing that higher and higher states are possible, because the reality of that truth could have been so traumatizing or so oppressive or any number of things, that the only thing that can enable the perspective of that state of conscious awareness to remain untainted is for a deception to be to become the accepted truth. And so then what happens as the conscious awareness expands, it becomes more and more aware of what it is, what it's capable of what's possible, matures, becomes an adult. Then the mind will bring the appropriate thought when it says, okay, this consciousness is now capable of accepting the truth of what actually happened when it was only 4 years old. It's now capable of claiming the I am of that experience. Oh, I am that. Oh, I am powerless. Okay, I understand that. I understand that I am powerless. And I can see that was a deception. I actually thought that person loved for me and cared for me. Or I thought that was a nightmare, but that actually really happened. Or whatever it may be. But the thought will bring it in the moment that the state of conscious awareness is ready to receive it and claim the I am of it. Oh, I am insignificant. I am unloved. I am powerless. I am. And inevitably to reveal the deeper desire underneath that. And that's really the thing that can be so harmful, is to claim the truth of a repressed desire that a child is just not capable of accepting the truth of. Because if the nature of mercy, for example, which I've spoken about a lot, the nature of mercy, if someone's causing a 4-year-old child suffering, and if it's ongoing, then the nature of mercy will arise in that child, and they'll have an authentic desire to annihilate the source of their suffering. And so they could feel an authentic desire to annihilate a parent, annihilate a loved one. And imagine having that rising up within you, and you're also dependent upon those people for your survival. You have no choice but to repress that desire, to repress the truth of that desire rising up in you. You have to in order to survive. And this is how it works. And so it's so, so important that we all just trust every single thought when it arises. Every single thought. Because it comes from a higher mind. It comes from a mind that can perceive far more than what you can. Far more. It's still a part of you. This is the important thing. You are this energy. But you have to let it in. You have to invite it in. Rather than, and if you're one of those people that gets a negative thought and tries to turn towards doing an affirmation, that is one of the most oppressive things you can do to yourself. You are just abandoning yourself relentlessly when you turn away from a thought. Relentlessly. And if you're someone that struggles with receiving, everything in your life that you create begins as a thought. Everything. Absolutely everything. And all of the things that you want at the deepest level, your deepest desires, the manifestation of those is held within the darkest shadows. So your most negative thoughts that you receive on a daily basis, hold the key to you receiving. And I've spoken about receiving in another podcast. We're not really receiving, but just for the sake of understanding, your darkest shadows hold the key to you receiving everything that you've been asking for and think that you're waiting for. The darkest shadows hold them. If you're someone who's ever, I'll give you an example of one that's that I've experienced myself. If you've ever felt the sensation of being lewd, you feel lewd, or you feel dirty, or you feel perverted, or crude or crass, or slutty, or one of those dirty sexual words. I don't want to use too many horrible words on this podcast, but you get the drift. When you sink into those emotions, you claim the I am around those emotions, the revelation is profound. Because the essence of the whore is purity. It's purity. When that shadow within you that feels that way, that feels like a whore, for example, when you give it enough unconditional presence and you let it know that you're never going to change it, that it's perfect exactly as it is, that you validate that part of you. And when you get to the point where you actually understand it, the moment you understand it is when you understand that its essence is purity. It is purity. And I'm not gonna give you a spoiler, because I've done this before, and what I've realized is when I always give away the essence of a specific emotion, sometimes people think that they've reconciled it within themselves, and it's actually not the case. So just understand that, I have spoiled it, but don't let that deter you from next time you feel that sensation within you. If someone says something to you and you feel smutty, or you feel dirty, or whatever it may be, just lean into it, sink into it. And when you discover what, the truth of it underneath, it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. And you realize that, there's never any reason to reject a negative emotion, ever. ever. It's only our resistance to that emotion that is causing us pain, that's causing us shame and guilt. So, I think, so in terms of the mind, let's say, so the ego, for example, everyone's so anti-ego, and, everyone's so, everyone's just cancelled anyone who's a narcissist, label someone a narcissist, and struggle to recover from that one. We hate that word. So-and-so's a narcissist. Everyone is a narcissist. Everyone is a narcissist. Everyone. Everyone is a liar. Everyone is deceptive. You cannot live your life without deception. It's impossible. If you were living your life without deception, you would be an enlightened being. You'd be teleporting through different dimensions. So understand this. The mind is deceiving as much as it needs to in order to retain the purity of the truth of the spirit. And that's how the mind works. That's how the mind works. But again, trust is the key. And so what I would say is that you somehow, this is how the process works. The three working together symbiotically. So you have, that is the mind, the spirit, or the soul, and the body. So you're going about your day, you get a thought. You stay with the thought. You stay with it. You never turn away from it. You never run towards a meditation and try to still your mind, to stop the thought. If your mind's racing, you go to bed at night, your mind's racing. You can't sleep. Stay with your thoughts. It's your nature arising. It's your mind. The reason you can't get to sleep at night and you've got all these thoughts pinging around is because you haven't given your thoughts unconditional presence during the day. You haven't stayed with your thoughts. The way we're set up and designed is like a murmuration of birds. We receive a signal, we interpret it, and we express the truth of it. And it's always seemed such a strange thing to me how, why would a human being receive a vision and then seek to validate it? Why it's all valid. Absolutely everything you see in your mind, everything that comes to you in a dream. But the thing is that you can't really read a book and figure out how to interpret that dream. Of course, it can help because, it helps your mind to communicate with you. If you read a book of interpreting dreams and it said that an eagle means this. So if you form a belief that an eagle means this, it enables the mind to communicate with you more effectively. If it wants to tell you something, it knows it can bring you an eagle and you'll believe that it's this. So, but meaning that's how you wield your power. The interpretation is yours. You decide what it means. I just received a thought, and it's actually the process of staying with it until you come to a conclusion on your own about what it means. So you get a thought, you stay with that thought, you stay with it. And what happens if you stay with it, holding the intention to uncover its meaning? It'll evolve. You might get another thought. And you're like, oh, okay. And then another thought comes up. You follow that. And then all of a sudden, you can see something. You got a vision. And you keep questioning it, but you stay with it. You don't deviate off it. Now, there are people out there in the world that think this is a lack of focus. That if you do this is you being distracted. It's not. It's you following your nature. The thing that's distracting you is the thing you're trying to stay physically focused on. This is what it means to be free and autonomous, to trust your own nature. You receive all your thoughts, you allow them, you give them unconditional presence. You stay with those thoughts until they birth inspiration, and then you follow that inspiration. That inspiration could be a thought, it could be a vision, could just be a feeling, an impulse. That's how you live a life of freedom and autonomy. But you can see the symbiotic nature of it, where you receive a thought and then you're giving it your presence. You're giving it your awareness. You're nurturing it. That's how you create. That's how you create. That's how you co-create with all aspects of yourself. And it's no more complex than that. It's no more complex than that. So you can see how things like discipline, and here's a classic scenario. You've decided, right, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to, let's say, I'm going to write a shopping list when I get up at 9 a.m. I'm going to write a shopping list. And so you get up in the morning, you do your usual thing. The alarm goes off. Oh, it's time to write my shopping list. Meanwhile, you've got all these thoughts bombarding you, but you're brushing them aside because you've decided to do your shopping list. You're rejecting yourself. This is self-rejection. This is self-abandonment. You're abandoning your own nature. You're using your free will to reject the most powerful part of you. Well, it's your true power is in the symbiosis of all three of these working in harmony. But you're trying to do the job of your inherent nature by expressing your will. But it's self-rejection. And all we ever need to do is trust our impulses, trust our thoughts. And, in the scenario where you want to create a shopping list, that the way you express your will is through your intention. And you can do it really finely. You can do it really, and in fact, you need to do it really finely in a focused way. But what you do is you set the intention, I want to make a shopping list, the ideal shopping list, so I can do the shopping. And then you just forget it. That's it. And then you just wait, expecting to get a thought at some point and just trusting that it'll come at the ideal time. Just going about your day, doing some work. Then all of a sudden, ping, you get an idea for something to put on the shopping list. And you're like, oh, You stay with that thought. You allow it to unfold. Oh, okay, what else do I want to get? Oh, okay. Oh, I wonder what meals I could create as well. And then as you're doing the shopping list, then you starting getting visions for meals you could be having. I want something really, I want something convenient, but I also want to try something I've never tried before. And then a vision of a cookbook that you haven't used for ages pops into your mind. Oh, yeah. You see, this is how you co-create with all of the aspects that make up the hybrid that you are. You're a hybrid. And once you get used to doing this, it's almost like set it and forget it. And once you get used to this, and once you're doing it all the time, you'll start to live your life in a way where your vision is with you all the time. Your vision for everything that you're creating is with you all the time. And so if you're creating a big project, for example, you're just continually adding to it, continually adding to the vision without actually doing anything. You get to the point where you're not trying to strive towards doing things. You can actually conceive and nurture a massive vision in the ether. And you just keep adding to it, and you move forward. You'll know when to move forward because the inspiration that you get will be like, okay, now's the time to move forward. Now's the time to go shopping for that shopping list. And this is what it was like for me with the huge project I'm involved with. It's called Powerhouse. I've been at it for over 10, 12 years now. And our team, we've been together about 5 years, our core team working on it. But the conception of that for me happened over years and years and years, nurturing a vision. And, at some point, you feel the inspiration. Okay, now it's time to move forward. And you move forward when the inspiration arises. And this is how you live from your nature. But one of the most important things in order to be able to live like this is you have to trust your nature. You have to trust your mind. You have to accept and allow yourself to be deceived. You have to allow yourself to be inauthentic. You just have to trust that everything that happens to you in your life, everything that you experience, all of your responses, all of your impulses, thoughts, feelings, emotions are always valid, and they are always arise in the ideal moment. They always arise in the ideal moment. And but there are certain things that you have to be totally comfortable with in order for this to work as well. And that is, if you feel an emotion, you actually feel it. You don't just shove it down. That you have the skill of inviting it in, sinking into it, bathing in it, claiming the I am of it. And you just take it in your stride, and you can just feel your emotions like it's nothing. That you're not actually afraid of your emotions anymore. That you could feel an emotion that most people would consider extremely dark, and it barely even does anything to you, because it's just energy moving through your body being expressed. Because to be integrated, totally integrated with your light and your shadow, to live your life in a way where your shadow and your light are symbiotic, you do need to be in a state of total trust of your thoughts, your feelings, your impulses, your own nature, your ability to, consciously create. And when I say consciously create, I just mean in the way I was talking before, where, okay, I know I need to do some shopping. You set an intention to set a shopping list at the ideal time, and then wait for the thought, wait for the inspiration to come. This is what enables you to just continue following your nature, receiving your thoughts, stay with the thoughts. It's really, really simple. It's really, really simple. Because you're the only thing that has the power to transform energy, to change the state of energy, is presence, awareness. So it's what you bring your awareness to that enables it to change state. And so if you're feeling an emotion and it's painful, then that's because the light of awareness hasn't been brought to that thing yet. And the moment that awareness has been brought to that thing is the moment that you have understanding. You can see it, you understand it, you've brought the light of awareness to it. And in that moment, it ceases to exist as a barrier. The pain has been negated. Now, that all sounds wonderful and perfect, but the problem we have is fear. We will always have fear. And fear will cause us to not trust a thought. Fear will cause us to not feel an emotion. Fear will cause us to try and move towards the light when the dark is what's actually being presented. But it's totally okay. It's totally okay, because we will address it at the ideal time. As long as we go into our life, we bring in this understanding of how this actually works into our life. You can't really live into this unless you understand how it all works. But if you do understand how it all works, then you can easily live into it. But for me personally, the hardest part was the vision stuff always came really easily to me. I've always trusted my visions. But what I really struggled with was the emotional stuff. I used to be so scared of my emotions. I used to be one of those people who was, I thought that if because one of the first things I learnt about was law of attraction. And I thought that if I had a negative emotion, I thought that if I allowed myself to feel it, I thought it would create a negative emotion. And it wasn't, it took me ages to realize that the opposite is actually true. And it took me a long, long time to really understand that. But if I was to, looking back on my journey of self-discovery, if there was one thing that I wish someone could have shared with me and told me, before I even began all of this, it would be that one thing. That to when you feel and when you receive a negative thought, when you receive a negative feeling, that you receive those wholly and give them unconditional presence exactly the same way as if they were a positive thought or a positive emotion. Stay with them. like it's the birth of a new magnificent creation, even when it's a negative thought, even when it's a negative emotion. Because those things alone, for me, have enabled massive, massive transformation. And not because I'm trying to change myself, but because I've brought so much awareness into my shadows that transformation is the only possible outcome. I'm just always bringing deeper and deeper awareness to new emotions I'm feeling, to new thoughts that I'm receiving, to visions that are unfolding. And the moment I'm able to, I'm expressing the meaning of what those mean to me so that I can take inspired action and move forward. Oh, a vision. Oh, yeah. And once it has clarity, I can do this now. I can move forward with that now. I thought I was stuck, but actually I can move forward right now. Our ability to move energy is entirely linked to how deep we've gone into the truth of a thought or an emotion or a vision. There's always greater depth we can bring clarity to, always. So my hope really for you is that, if you are someone that still does have fear of their emotions, they're afraid of what might happen if they allow themselves to feel the truth of it. It may be that it's a really dark thought, like it's suicidal. It may be that it's, it's an authentic desire to hurt someone that cares about you, because, my hope is that you understand that comes from mercy. You see, if someone's causing suffering in your life, mercy will arise within you, and that mercy wants to destroy the source of your suffering. So you see, understanding, self-understanding. If you understand your own nature, you can understand others. But really my hope is that you can just surrender to your own nature entirely, wholly. Allow your thoughts to guide you. Understand that the wisdom contained within it is so way beyond your limited perspective. And it is totally devoted to you realizing your highest potential. So you can trust that every time you get a thought, it's the right moment. It's the ideal moment. Just lean into it, receive it, feel into the truth of it, feel the emotions beneath it, and eagerly anticipate the profound revelation that's about to come because of it. And when we can get into the state, my dream, my vision, that, I've never actually, I don't think I've ever really shared this with anyone, because no one really understands. I've never met anyone that understands my perspective, but so I can't really share it. But now I've got this podcast, I can just share it, and it doesn't matter. It's that every human being on the planet just trusts their own nature. It's that simple. It's that simple. They trust their own nature, and to such a degree and such an extent where they realize and they finally come to know that that's the only way to love yourself, is to allow your nature, to trust your nature. It's the only way you can give yourself love, to receive that thought, to stay with that thought, to enable the marriage of the mind and the spirit by giving it unconditional presence. That's where the magic happens. That's where creation happens. And the moment that happens, we'll all see all of our individual uniqueness just rise to the surface and just flourish. We'll see parts of ourselves that we've never allowed anyone else to see before, because it's emerging now, because we're not resisting our shadows. We're revealing the light contained within those shadows. And we're not trying to control our external world. We're just allowing it to unfold. We're allowing it to just arise. And in this state, there is no suffering, because you're not fighting against your own nature. You're not withholding your own nature. You're not oppressing yourself into being disciplined. You're not actually doing anything that you do not want to do. So that's the nature of the mind. My other hope is that, you understand that the ego is a tool for your mind to keep you safe. What you would term a narcissist, it's just another form of camouflage designed to protect the innocence of a state of consciousness that's not mature enough yet to accept the truth of what actually happened, or the truth of who they really are, or could be any number of things. But the narcissist is just unfortunately not mature enough yet to accept the truth of a specific emotion or a specific aspect of themselves. And it's just our nature. Okay, that's all for now. Talk to you soon. Cheers.